Facebook now. I can't tell. But this is Pro Power Hour. This is something we do every Thursday now at this time at 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. This is something that we do every single Thursday. It's a product training webinar. So every week you can come and learn about a feature or a product that we have here at Housecall Pro. We'll talk about pretty much all the benefits, why you might want to use said product or feature, and then Phil graciously gives us an onboarding, or excuse me, a demo presentation every week. We've covered a lot of ground. We have a whole help article full of recordings and a whole library of all of our recordings on YouTube as well. So I think we've covered almost everything. We're starting to resurface some topics. And today we're talking about voice, which we talked about, I think our second power hour we ever did. So coming full circle. So Phil, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2 Power Hour at our new time here. I'm Phil. You've all probably seen me before, or at least seen me on the YouTube. Yeah, today we're going to revisit voice. We have had a lot of improvements to the VoIP system. So some of these, as I see some of the questions that have been prepared, some of our new features do answer some of these questions. So. Again, just kind of sticking to our usual format, going to hit you all with a lot of information about just overall the VoIP system in itself, and then I will go ahead and demo it for you. Um, I'm gonna be able. I have to say off the bat is that my I do not have the VoIP on my phone, but I do have some videos that will show what this is going to look like, and I will be able to explain it also on how it's going to look. But I still do many of these phone onboardings. So if you are new to VoIP and are interested in getting it with the Housecall Pro system, I guarantee you probably have a 1 in 5 chance of doing your onboarding session with me. So take this as a demo and an opportunity to meet me before you probably sign up. And let's get it rolling. So first, let's throw up the slideshow. All right. So for VoIP, the first thing, a lot of people have been asking for this. I feel like this has been around for a bit, but we have made some improvements to it, is the voice block list. And I did see a couple of questions that have come through asking about the block list, but it really is exactly what it's titled and what it's meant to be. Being able to take any of those spam calls from any robocalls, campaign calls, all of that stuff. We can go ahead and add it to this list so that these calls don't start eating up your minutes. And we all know that those minutes are costly. So this is the best way to keep those annoying calls from coming in. And it's really simple. I'll show you all where this is in the system. Now, it kind of says there at the bottom, it's really just kind of in your settings, within your voice settings, and then there is the option for the block list. Now, because we're talking about this right now, and we did have a question prepared about blocking calls, I'm just going to address it now. At this time, calls can only be blocked on the web portal. They cannot be blocked on the cell phones. I know that that can be a headache for some of the technicians that are within the call flow. I'm sure that this is being looked at for some improvements, but at this time, only calls that want to be added to the block list are going to be in the web portal. Um, Now, as we go through and I do the demo, we are going to see some of this stuff. I always tell everybody when I do the onboardings regarding the phone system is that there are many different places to block calls within the system. One of them, as we can see on the left-hand side over here, is in the intake form. And if you are familiar with the intake form without the phone system, it's really the same idea as if you do have the phone system, except we give you two more additions, which is call notes and the ability to send it to that spam list. The other option to be able to put calls into the block list is going to be in the call log. And again, I will show this when we go through our demo, but there is a place where we can go ahead and click and say send to the spam or block list. Another improvement that we made is with the call queuing. What this essentially does is it creates a waiting room so that when customers call in, they will be put into the waiting room. And whenever one of our employees is ready to take that call, they can go ahead and click on them to go ahead and take that call. Very similar to being put on hold and things like that. But I do want to point out is that the call queue is only available if you do get the high tier of the phone system. We have kind of the basic, the medium package, and then the ultimate package. So for call queuing, you would want to have the ultimate. Some other things in regards to call queuing is like the ring groups. And we're going to talk a little bit about ring groups when I do the demo. When I tell other pros about what these ring groups do, it's specifically being giving you the functionality of saying like, hey, I would like the call to ring simultaneously to myself, Chris, and Lauren. And before it goes on to the next step. And this may make more sense when we look at those call flows, but that's essentially what the ring groups allow you to do. Also, transferring calls. This is also only available on the Ultimate package. For that, it's basically, I'm sure we're all aware of what transferring calls are, but there's the button. You'll see it on the dial pad that you can go ahead and transfer that call to anybody else in your company. Agent availability. So you're going to see is on the dial pad, you do have the ability to mark yourself as available and mark yourself unavailable. So whenever somebody is going to take lunch or whatever the case may be, they can go ahead and set themselves to unavailable. That way, no calls go to them and they can always make themselves available when they are ready. Another thing is placing calls on hold. This is pretty much available. I believe it's for everybody as well. But that allows you to do exactly what it says. If you're talking to a customer, we can always put them on hold while we figure out either pull up their account or have to talk to somebody else within the office. Agent status. So I just touched on this a little bit. So here's a really good uh, picture of how it's going to look, but we are going to see it together as well. So I'll show you where it does kind of show it right up here that all you do is click on the arrow to go ahead and to set yourself available, set yourself unavailable. And then when you're on a call, the little light actually turns a different color. So it lets everybody know that you are on a call. And once you get off the call, it will go back to green for available or gray if you set yourself unavailable. Transferring calls. So here's some great pictures here that show it. And with it, when a customer calls in and you have your dial pad open, you do have the ability to add a call. And by doing that, you just click the button right here that is labeled, and it will pull up the list of all your other employees. And that way, as I mentioned, if they are available by setting themselves to available, or if they're out in the field, we can go ahead and transfer that call to them just by simply hitting the button. So kind of a little step by step here. Add the call, pick which employees that you want to, or you can transfer to an external number as well. And this will also allow you to set up conference calls if you want to do that as well. We've made some improvements in the pricing. So if you hopped on board at the beginning, we have made improvements to that. So for it, there are the three packages right there, VoIP, Advanced, and Premium. Um, and for those, it's clearly listed here. The basic plan is $49, and that gives you 500 minutes with a 6-cent overage for the overage minutes, and you get 2 additional phone lines. People always ask me, I really do a lot of trainings with the people that are on the basics. And what that means is that you get one number from us to be your primary number if you are not choosing to port a number. And that means you get 2 additional lines to be used for any additional lead sources. Now with advanced, that is 149. That gets you 2,500 minutes. And same idea, 6 cents for any of those minutes that roll over. And this one, you get 10 additional lines. The premium, as it mentions down there, is $299 a month, and it's 7,500 minutes, 4 cents for those overage minutes, and you get 30 lines. Actually, we're going to bypass that because I'm going to show it anyway. All right, voice on mobile. So no matter whether people are in the office or in the field, we can certainly have calls be sent to people's cell phone. Mostly with the technicians, since they will have the mobile app, they'll be able to take those calls through the mobile app, and they can also use the mobile app to outreach to any customers. We're going to see is there is an option to mask their number. So if you don't want the technicians to be giving the customers their private cell phone number, we can always hide it and give them the business line. I'm going to show everybody where to set that up, but it is available. And also a couple of other things is that, one man operations, you're able to handle essentially all of your business right there in the mobile app as you're on the go. So you can also take those phone calls so you don't have to worry about just sitting, not being at the office. So a couple of things on here to show, just kind of how it looks, which is great because I would have trouble showing it. But I do have a couple of videos as well that we can take a look at an example. There is the mobile call log, which is very similar to the one that is in the web portal, so that if you are one of those people that are constantly on the road, you are able to take a look and see the overall of all the calls that are made, either outbound or inbound, and you can also access your voicemails. There's other things in here is, as I mentioned, just being able to have the functionality of making and receiving any of those calls and have the functionality from the call screen. So similar to the dial pad that we'll see on the computer, where you can mute the calls, start and stop recordings, and switch to either your phone speaker or if you got an earpiece, your Bluetooth earpiece. And lastly, have the ability to transfer to another user. So with all of those improvements, let's go ahead and go through it all. Now, I'm going to kind of treat this a little bit like a onboarding that I would normally do. And when I go through the phone system, I nicknamed it myself as really the 3 to 4 pillars of the phone system. And one of them, first step is setup. Second one is testing the call. Three is reporting. And sometimes I mix that up with, like, you can say that the call log is number three and then reporting is number four, or you can put the two together. So when it comes to the phone system and you sign up, so first thing that we're going to do is there's a little bit of a checklist, a little bit of an intro that tells you, are you going to pick a number or are you going to port a number? Now, for the people that are going to be porting numbers, I'll talk about that because a lot of people do want to keep the same number they've been using for a long time. Is when you go into your account settings, there will be this option for voice and text. And when you go into voice and text, the first option is going to be phone numbers, and that's the screen that we're currently on. If you are choosing to port a number, there's the button right there. And when you click on it, it's going to lay out basically the whole roadmap for how it's going to look during the porting process. I always tell everybody is that if you are going to do this, you would want to do this as soon as possible, which is download the letter of authorization. This letter of authorization, you'll go ahead and fill this out. And some of this information you may have to call your carrier so that you can get either these PIN numbers or any of this other information that you may need. But once you do have this filled out, you're going to want to attach it down here at the bottom. The other thing that we're going to need is your last phone bill. I get the question all the time of, well, I use an online system. Like, how can I get that? I don't really get a phone bill. Really, if you similar to how we have it with ours, and I'll just kind of jump ahead just a little bit here, but like for our plan usage, all we really need is a screenshot or some kind of document that shows that you are paying for this number and what number it is. So this is kind of what I use as the example. So if you are using, I forget if it's Ring Central, but I know there's a couple other voice over IP platforms out there that don't necessarily have a bill, but you can certainly ask them and they can find you exactly what we're looking for. The last thing on here is a customer service record. Notice it does say that it is optional. If you do have this, you can attach it, and all it really does is kind of increase the time it takes to in the porting process because with more documentation, the quicker we can get these lines over. But it is not mandatory. So if you do not have a CSR report, don't worry about it as long as you can give us your latest phone bill and that letter of authorization filled out. Now, with the porting process, it does take about 1 to 3 weeks. Typically depends on what the carrier, how it transfers over from the carrier. So what we typically do when I do these onboardings is that we pretty much force you to go ahead and get a new number. And the reason that we do this is because when there is this downtime of the actual transferring of the lines, now notice I said actual transferring, not the porting process. When the actual transfer happens, there's going to be some downtime. And so to make sure that customers are able to reach you, that is why we pretty much force you to get a new number from us. That new number doesn't cost you anything. It comes with your package, and you can always get rid of it at a later time. Speaking of the transferring window, I'll call it, you always will get an email from us a couple of days prior to when it's going to happen, and we are going to let you know when that downtime is going to happen. That's when we have our engineer available to actually do the transfer. From what I've typically heard from most pros is that if you have one line that's transferring over, it typically takes around an hour of downtime. If you have multiple numbers, it's going to be a little bit longer, but again, the email will give you specifically that timeline. And I've also heard that if that timeline doesn't work for you, maybe it's going to take several hours of that day. Maybe the only time he's available is during the middle of your day. You can always respond to that email and request a different time, and you can work with that team to set up a good time with that engineer so it doesn't interfere with your day-to-day workflow. So with that, that's really the porting side of it, and I always like to discuss that. But when we go back to our numbers here, as we can see in my account, I have several different numbers, and there is the ability to add additional numbers. As I mentioned, even the basic accounts, you get 2 additional lines. And you can use those for, as I said, really any type of lead source. So here I have a TikTok number. I have another one that goes on my website, another one that's on Thumbtack. I've had some people say they put a specific number on their van that is separate from their business phone. So that way we can start to get this data of where customers are calling in from and see where our marketing money is best spent. So moving on and setting up, the next thing is the call flows. Now, as you can see, I have a lot of different call flows here, and I always encourage pros to really um, think and kind of play around with what they want to do with call flows. And one of them in particular that I always bring up is a holiday call flow. I always understand a lot of businesses, may not be open on specific holidays, or maybe they have limited hours and limited staff. So we always provide you with one workflow that's basically a default just to get you started. But I always tell pros that I onboard, it's worth taking a look at creating a second one for those days of like holidays or whatever the case may come up. So to create a call flow, you can click the button right up here. And here's the basic one that we typically start everybody out with, and you can always modify it, and we'll go through it together. So first thing is at the very top, the incoming call. And when we click on this, it's going to ask which number do we want to send through this call flow. So in this example, we'll probably say my primary, and let's maybe do the Facebook one too. All right, so basically now we said we want those numbers to go through this call flow. The next step in it is our call hours. And you have the ability of either keeping the phones open 24/7. You can also set it to what you have in your company profile, so your hours of operation, or you can customize when you want the calls, or when you want the phones to be ringing. I'm just going to show an example here of one that's based off the company profile. It would be the exact same if you did customized hours as well, because you're going to notice is that now the tree splits into two. We have one flow for during open hours and one flow for during closed hours. Our next step, we can always add a step, and the first one is playing a greeting. Now, for the greeting, you can upload your own audio file. So if you want to record yourself saying, "Hey, thank you for calling Phil's Awesome Company," you can go ahead and upload that. Anything I do make it a point is if you are going to upload a audio file for your greetings and your voicemails, they have to be MP3s. And sometimes when I tell people that, they kind of hum and haw. And don't worry, it's not hard to get an MP3. And I'm a big music guy. I get a lot of music videos and turn those in MP3s. I can guarantee you there are dozens of websites that do this for free. If you go into Google and type in convert to MP3 for free, you can take that recording on your phone, put it right into the website, and they will do it for you. No charge. The other option is text to speech, where you can actually type something out in this box here, and the AI bot will go ahead and read that back to the customer. So if we have our greeting in, we have our next step. We do have the option to forward to. Now, what I always tell everybody is first off, forwarding to is pretty self-explanatory, but this is where it becomes important to put in all of the employees' cell phone numbers in the employees and permission section. Because if you do have technicians that are out in the field and we need to forward a call to them or have them be part of this tree here, their phone number has to be connected to their profile in the Housecall Pro system. But as you can see, it's easy enough is if they are set up, you just go ahead and find them on the list and you can go ahead and select it. That way they're going to be the first stop. You'll also notice on here there is an option for external number. Now, a reason I clicked on this is because I know a lot of you that have signed up for Housecall Pro Assist, you want this to be part of your VoIP system. So you're going to want to do is get your Housecall Pro Assist number from your Housecall Pro Assist rep. And what you can do is put that in here so that you can put it at the end of your call flow. That way, if none of you answer the call sometime, Housecall Pro Assist will still answer your call. One thing that I want to point out is because not everybody reads the fine print, this yellow box right here, that's going to tell you is if you do forward the call to an external number that is outside of the Housecall Pro system, what's going to happen is if a customer leaves a voicemail, it's going to stay on that phone connected to that external number. So I always recommend is that really if you're going to forward it to an external number, it should be one of the last steps you have. And you also have to be comfortable knowing that you're not going to have the voicemail saved in your Housecall Pro system. Now, for each of these steps, I may have missed it on the last one, but you do have the ability to set up how many seconds before it hits the next step. People always ask me, how many rings is that? I typically coach people that 15 to 20 seconds is about 4 to 5 rings. That gives enough time for the customer or for our employees to answer the call. 10 is a little quick in my opinion, but if you want to keep it at 10, you're more than welcome to. Some other steps that we can includes the call menu. Now, this is a new feature for us. People have been asking for it for a while, and gives you the ability of saying, press 1 to reach sales, press 2 for accounting, press 3 for services. So you can set this up, and very similarly to how the tree broke up here into the two sections, we basically see this branch come off, so we can go ahead and say, hey, press 1 to reach the sales team, press 2 to speak directly to accounting, so on and so forth. Some other steps is simultaneous ring. And what this does is the first option is all available web phones, which means anybody that is at the computer has the dial pad open, they will be able to answer the call. If we go to employee, this is very similar to call forwarding. But what this also allows you to do that's different from call forwarding is that you can send it to somebody's specific web phone. With call forwarding, it goes specifically to their cell phone. Simultaneous ring allows you to pick whether you want to send it to their web phone or if you want to send it to their mobile app as well. And the last thing is the ring groups. which I talked about. And we are going to take a look at where to build these. Again, it's that example of where you want one group of your employees. So maybe your office managers, you want the call to go to these three people first. When the call comes in, all their phones start ringing. If they aren't able to answer, it goes on to the next step, and we can have that forward to either another ring group or a specific employee. Call queue. As I mentioned, this is another one that is fairly new. So what this allows you to do is set up that waiting room, and we do have some pretty awesome music here for you. So you can always select one of these tunes that we have already pre-made for you. Otherwise, you can upload your own audio file, as I mentioned before, as long as it is an MP3, and that will go on a loop. So very similarly to a lot of you that have the hold music, where you explain all your services and sometimes even your pricing, you can upload that and have the customers listen to that as they're waiting for someone to answer their call. You also do have the ability to give customers the option of, instead of waiting on hold for, several minutes, is that we can allow them to say, it'll say, would you prefer to leave a voicemail or stay on the line? And that way we give the customers a better experience. So they're not just sitting there on hold the whole time. They can just leave you a voicemail and wait to hear back from you. And then really the last one is sent to voicemail, which is very similar to the greeting, which, as I mentioned, you can upload that audio file, or you can also type out something specific, and that will go ahead and the automated voice will read that back to the customer. So I'm gonna quickly just get rid of some of the stuff here. Actually, I'm just gonna cancel it. All right. Actually, let me just quickly do something here. Okay. Okay, there we go. So moving on, when it comes to setup, the next thing is the audio library. And this is where you can upload all of your MP3s into one place, and this is where they will store. So that way, as I said, some people will go ahead and create, their normal greeting, and then some may have like a happy holidays greeting. So if you want to go ahead and store all of your greetings in here, all your voicemails, all your hold music, they will all store in this location. And when you go into your call flows, you can go ahead and select which ones you want to use. Ring groups is the next thing, which I talked about. So as we can see here, here's an example of one. When we open up those ring groups, we can say, all right, here's my administration group, and I want the call to go to Amanda, Ava, and Casey first before it goes to somebody else. So this is where you can set up those ring groups. I get the common question all the time is sometimes people will come into this section and only see themselves and not all the rest of their employees. What I recommend that you do for this is if they are office staff, is to go ahead and just log into their account and press this phone button up here to open up the dialer. And then their box is going to appear saying that they're an option for that ring group as a web phone. If we want it for the mobile phone, which we saw as an example, is simply just go ahead, open up the mobile app, and that should go ahead and add their box. If their telephone number is connected to their profile, their box is going to show up just like Casey, right? Or I'm sorry, I saw somebody else with it. Dylan over here. Next step is recording calls. Pretty straightforward. We can go ahead and turn these on to have our calls recorded. Now you'll notice that there are these two windows right here that go ahead and say play the call recording notice. Now you do have the ability to turn this off, and as you will see, this window pops up. The reason is because it is not necessarily legal in every state to be recording calls, or you have to let a customer know that you are recording the call. So I usually tell people I would honestly just keep this on and have the auto voice say that the call is being recorded, so that way it's very consistent. But if you do turn it off, you can always do so and say that it's fine. our office staff is going to let them know it's being recorded. Masking calls, I talked about this earlier. So if we want our technicians to be able to call customers and not give them their personal cell phone number, all we really want to do is hit the switch right here so that when they call, it's going to be giving the customer their business line. The block list, we talked about this at the beginning of the meeting or the session here. And really very simple. As you can see here, we would be able to see any of the numbers that have been blocked. And we can always add numbers to the block list right here. Plan usage, as I touched on earlier, that gives you all the information regarding your phone plan with us. And also in this section is where the text messaging has been included as well. So we kind of keep everything phone related in one specific area for the account settings. I don't have my text messaging set up, but this is where, if you've set yours up, this is where those 3 boxes are. So that's kind of the first pillar that I say of the phone system. So then the next thing is testing a call and seeing what that looks like. I know we're getting kind of burning through time here, so I will try and make this as quickly as I can while still having time for questions. Um, 0, 3, 2, 8. All right, so a call comes in. We're going to go ahead and answer the call. And notice, sorry, I'm going to hang up here. All right, I'm just hearing myself, so I'm just going to power through it. Here's the dial pad. And as I mentioned, here's the ability to go ahead and transfer that call. And up here is the ability to go ahead and add more people to a call. So if we want to have a conference call, we can certainly set that up. We do have a pause or essentially like a hold button. So if we need to put a customer on hold, we have the ability to mute. So if we need to talk to somebody while we are talking with a customer, and we have the ability to go ahead and record the call or not. We can stop the recording at any time. Since I pointed that out, I'm going to hang up the call. That's a lot better. And as I mentioned, here is the intake form that pops up. One of the questions that did come through, this kind of answers it right here, which is when customers call in, if they are already in the system, I'm currently not in this one, but their information would pop up. We would have their customer name, their address, and as we can see, the telephone number is already in there. I'm not going to go through all the ins and outs of the intake form because we did do this on another call and we may also revisit this another time. But still, in my opinion, one of the best features in our system is the intake form. Now, when we get all the customers' information and we go through all the steps on the intake form, we do have for the save as. I did mention that we now have an option for call notes and sending it directly to the spam list. For those call notes, it allows us to go ahead. This window will pop up and we can label what this call was. So was it a follow-up? Was it a complaint? Was it a call from a vendor? Was it a billing inquiry? Wrong number? Other? Whatever the case may be. And you can also leave additional notes down below. So that would be the second step is testing the call. We saw how that looks. Now, how do we access our calls? Is we would go to our inbox, and that is where we will find our call log. The call log, as we can see here, basically gives you all the information kind of from a high view of what happened during those calls. So we can see what number called in, when it happened, which number of ours that they called. So again, if you set up multiple lead sources and different telephone numbers for those lead sources, we can see specifically which number was called. For those call notes, I showed you all the reason for the call, and that's where we put in follow-up, and we would see any of those basically tags right here. And I do like to point out to everybody is if a job is actually created when we go through the whole intake process on the phone, it does create a link directly to that job. We can also see which employee answered the call, how long that call was. We can call the customers back or listen to the recordings. And I'm sure as you can all see, it does light up as I go through each one of these calls. If I click on it, it will open up the window so that I can view and edit any of those notes, add a call reason if a call reason has not been added, listen to the call, or again, send the number to the block list. Then really the last thing that I show everybody as we go through onboarding is that with VoIP, you do get voice reports. And for the voice reports, it's really just these three ones right here. We can take a look at our call conversions. So for those by date, we can go ahead and see how many calls happened, how many of those calls were opportunities, and how many estimates, leads, or jobs were created from those calls. Another thing we can do is pull reports by call type. So again, if you set up multiple numbers for lead sources, we can start to see where our marketing money is best spent. Out of all of our lead sources, who's calling that number the most? And then the last one is employee. So that way we can go ahead and see who is answering the most calls. And if you have some incentive for somebody who answers the most calls, they can go ahead and get that prize there. But we would be able to take a look at how many calls they've received, how many jobs were created from those calls, and also if it matters on outbound calls, if you have a sales team that reaches out to people, we can start to see how many outbound calls they've made. So with that, that's really, as I mentioned, kind of the four big pillars of the VoIP system. So I do want to open the floor to any questions. Let's see if any have come through the chat. I do not see many, so I'll give you all a minute while I go through some of the ones that were prepared. So I have one here from Seth. More or less, because I already have my notes on answering these. More or less, he was asking about setting up a hierarchy, having a call go to one specific person. If they're busy, have it go to the next person. Um, and really, that's just doing the call flows. You can set it up if you want to have one, as I showed you with forwarding, we can have it go to one specific person. Or as I mentioned, you can set up those ring groups. So if Chris is on a call that and I have my dial pad open, I can answer the call. But if the way he kind of said it, what you would want to do, Seth, is you would want to set Chris to be the first one to answer it. If he's not able to answer it, you would want to create another step and have it forward to me so that way, if he doesn't answer it, it's going to forward to me. Another question from Seth. If a customer, yeah, this was the one I pointed out. So if a customer calls in, which we just demoed, their information would pop up. I'm just sorry, on my example, didn't already have myself in the system, but we did see that my number comes up. I promise you, if the customer is in the system, their information pulls up. All right, next question is from Jonathan. He's been looking for a place to block spam on the mobile app. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is currently not available. I'm sure we are aware of this and working on improving it, but at this time, only spam numbers can be added to the spam list through the web portal. Next thing. This is from Andrea. Is HCP Voice unable to send a text if the number is not saved as a customer profile? Unfortunately, that is true. I've noticed that has been kind of a pain point for some people. When we do try to send a text message through the Housecall Pro system, when we do it on the web portal, it's going to that customer has to be in the system. It's always going to ask for the customer name, and it's not really like a dial pad. I've seen people try over and over again to type in numbers, and nothing comes up. So if you do want to text out from the system, they have to be a customer. And that also applies for the mobile app as well. Like you actually have to be on the job and look at our mobile app training, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There is a little bubble there that allows you to text through the Housecall Pro system. All right. right. Next, from Larry. I have set to disconnect the call if the caller doesn't select a valid number in my call flow. This helps with robocalls, but you're still seeing them show up in your call history. Um, Larry, I would probably say you might want to set up a support call with us to maybe take a further look. But my initial notes on this was is that even though you have them not going through the call flow, but they're still hitting your voicemail or seeing as missed calls, what I would do is just go ahead and block that number. That way, if these robo numbers are continuing to call you, they're blocking, so they're not eating up your minutes and they should not show up on your call log. Next one is from Tyler. Is there any way to set it up so that my existing customers that call will display mine or my technician's phone saying it's a Housecall Pro number? Okay, so I have noticed this with a couple of different pros. Um, Sometimes they don't set this up and it's within your phone settings. Now, forgive me, I have an iPhone and I'm sure there's a similar place in an Android, but for the iPhone, it's under settings and let me just check my notes here again. And I can even share the picture here. Go ahead and quickly share this. So it's under call blocking and identification. So in your iPhone, if you go into your settings, you can look up call blocking and identification, and it's going to see if you have the House Call Pro app. You'll have this option right here. What you'll want to do is flip the switch. And so what that does is that when calls start coming in, customers are calling your House Call Pro line. You're going to get a notification from the House Call Pro app letting you know that it's a customer calling from Housecall Pro. If you have this turned off, it's just going to look like a normal phone call that you would get from anybody. So always make sure that you have this set up so that you know it's coming from Housecall. And within Android, I'm pretty sure in your settings, there's something similar to call blocking and identification. Next from Lily. Does anyone know if iMessages are received correctly or do you only get SMS messages? Um, so everything comes through as an SMS message. My understanding and from what I've seen, excuse me, is that even if you send an iMessage, it comes through as a text message. Very similarly to if you have an iPhone and you're in a bad area and it says, do you want to send it as an SMS message? It's the same functionality. And last question on here, is there any way to have, this is from, is this Dallas fan? Anyway, it's basically asking, can my text messaging number be the same thing as my primary number? As I mentioned, we do have unified number, so you can set that up. I'll just quickly share my screen. Oh, shoot. I don't have it set up. There you go. Right here in the phone numbers, as you can see, and as I talked about before, you can set up the unified number. Here's a way to go ahead and do it. You can do it in your phone numbers. There will say, once you set up text messaging, it'll say click up here to go ahead and unify the number. Or when you're in your text messaging, it'll be big green box. We're telling everybody that we now have unified number. So these are the two places where you can start setting that up. All right. Been talking a lot here, and I'm sure you all can tell. So I don't see any other questions here in the chat, so I'll slide it over to Chris.
Yeah, appreciate it, Phil. I know you must be parched. Um, We have one other question here on Facebook from Doug. Any plans to let us customize call reason? I know that we've been intaking some feedback about call reason, and I think we actually are doing some work there. Just don't have the specifics in front of me. Phil, I don't know if you know anything. Otherwise, I'll find that out and I'll get back to you shortly, Doug.
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't hear anything about that.
Yeah. We talked a couple weeks ago on Whiteboard Wednesday. I'll link that in the chat in Facebook, so you guys can go back and watch that. We talked about all the updates, like unified phone number and all these things that are coming out. So, I also want to encourage anybody watching the recording. If you're watching the recording on Facebook, drop your questions in the comments. We'll monitor the thread the next few days. And if you're watching it on YouTube, encourage you join our Facebook community if you have more questions. The best way to get your questions answered, unless you head to the blue chat bubble, and we can help you there too. Um, Otherwise, I think that's gonna do it for this week. Phil, really appreciate it as always. Rocking the Yimpy hat, I like it. Um, we'll see everyone back next week. I think next week we're going to talk about signatures. So those signatures that are in your mobile app, but we'll also talk about e-signatures that are now available on estimates that came out about a month ago, a month and a half ago. So we'll talk about that and we'll catch everyone next week.
Sounds good. See you then.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.